Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Coach John Runs His Cake Hole, brought to you by the Sports Reclamation Project. I'm your friendly neighborhood youth coach, Coach John, and as always, thank you for stopping by. Just past Labor Day week, we're in the second week of school. I'm not feeling as fatigued as I was, but stand by. Middle school basketball season is starting, and I have agreed to be on the bench of a girls' middle school team. So my schedule should rapidly be filled, and I'm really excited about it. My girls' volleyball team, if you've been following me, I'm a first-year volleyball coach, just doing it to spend time with my daughter and have a little fun. They picked up another win. It's a short season. It's a 5-game season in the developmental league. We've got one more game to go. And I've learned a lot about coaching young ladies and coaching a sport I'm not familiar with, and I look forward to sharing that with you when the time comes. Once basketball season ends and I have a little bit of time to recharge, I'll get to it. Speaking of recharging, you can't have a recharge without a plug. And speaking of plugs, it's time for our shameless plugs. If you have not liked, followed, or subscribed to us on social media, please do so. You can find us on Facebook at the Sports Reclamation Project. You can find us on Instagram at _Sports Reclamation Project. And I almost gave you the website for our Facebook page, but here's our website, www.sportsreclamationproject.com. I can be reached at any of those sites as well if you have any questions or comments. While you're on the Sports Reclamation Project website, feel free to check out any of the templates or peer-reviewed research I have put at the bottom of the page, and also visit our shop. A purchase of merchandise from our shop does not go to my pocket, does not go back to the Sports Reclamation Project's pocket. It goes directly back into our scholarship fund, where we fund the scholarship and youth sports needs of young athletes. I'm still working on the name for it. Once I get it, I will share it. Last but certainly not least, TrueVictory.com. True Victory is a brand founded by military veterans and first responders, getting a little tongue-tied here, and they're looking forward to sharing their quality product with you. You can visit the website at www.truevictory.com. Use that promo code RECLAMATION for 15% off your purchase. Now, without further ado, let's get into this week's topic. As I've talked before, there's a lack of parity in youth sports, and no matter what we do in the current state of youth sports, something is going to happen. It's, as I always say, it's as inevitable as death and taxes. That thing that will happen is blowouts. There will be blowouts in youth sports, unfortunately. And I'm an adamant believer that nobody wins in a blowout. However, blowouts can be handled properly. And I want to talk about things you can do to properly manage a blowout. Usually on either side of the ball, these things work. If you've coached youth sports long enough, like I said, you've been blown out and you've blown an opponent out. It's just going to happen. They're inevitable in that realm, and they're ugly and they're unpleasant. Let's be honest. Blowouts are ugly and unpleasant, and there's a number of things that can go wrong if a blowout is allowed to continue. Coaches these days take offense to having the score ran up on them. I can't say I blame them, but it is what it is. However, coaches, you can also use a blowout to continue to develop players and encourage retention. Yes, I know blowouts can be demoralizing. They can be upsetting, disheartening, frustrating if you're on the receiving end of a blowout and the opposing team keeps running the score up. But if coached and managed correctly, they don't have to be as bad as the scoreboard makes them appear. But in order to manage a blowout properly, you have to be intentional and you have to be deliberate. No matter what side of the scoreboard you're on, you have to be intentional and deliberate. And in order to do that, you have to make sure you have a plan in place for if a blowout happens. So here are my tips to handle a blowout. What you want to do during a blowout is you want to manage your bench. Maximize playing time for your bench. Recently, I read of a 100-point blowout in, I believe it was Pennsylvania basketball, to where halfway through the third quarter, while up 60 points, the coach still had his starters in. And I want to ask why. And they were pressing. I want to ask why. There's nothing more frustrating than dealing with a coach who either by choice or ignorance does not realize the game is over and continues playing their starters and or key reserves. Now, at this point, there's a good chance someone listening to this podcast is probably saying, well, it's that team's job to stop my team. Yes, if we're playing college or professional sports, absolutely. But even at the professional ranks, certain things during a blowout will cause a problem. There's an unwritten code during a blowout. You don't see football teams up by 6 touchdowns in the NFL still throwing the ball. So don't give me that. It's their job to stop us, especially in youth sports. Blowouts are a best time to expose your deep bench to the game. Allow them to run the offense, get some experience. Let them work on their defense. It's where they can grow and develop. And I'm not just talking about the last 30 seconds. Any coach who's paying attention knows when the game's wrapped up and knows when they can do that. And whether you're blowing a team out or being blown out, this is the ideal time to expose players to game time competition, situations they may not have experienced before, and let them grow. Once again, let me stress, this doesn't mean the last minute of the game where you clear the bench to clear your conscience. This means give them adequate time to develop. What you don't want to do is run up the score. Embarrassed, I have to say this. The quickest way to create an in-game or post-game issue is for a coach to ignore youth sports culture norms and not call off the dogs, or allow their team to humiliate the other team, or encourage it. There is never any reason beyond personal ego for a coach to run up the score in youth sports. As I mentioned above, maximum playing time for reserve should be the primary focus during a blowout. And even then, if the blowout still continues to carry on, specific parameters required to scoring, certain number of passes, a certain type of play, there should be criteria set that will allow your players to develop without running up the score. The quickest way to an altercation, a serious injury through dirty play, or issues on the court is when the team or coach feels they're being shown up deliberately and deliberately humiliated. There's a natural urge to want to regain your pride, and unfortunately that leads to fights in youth sports. If you don't believe me, Google it and you'll see some stuff that makes you sad. You do, however, want to remain composed and positive. I know it's easier said than done due to human nature. Maintaining composure in the face of turmoil is a life skill that can be taught by sports. A blowout is a great way to model that trait. Avoid being overly negative in the huddle and on the bench, especially if you're getting blown out, and focus on the good things you do see. You can find positives even in a blowout. Focus on the learning points for next practice. It's never too late to start the next practice if you're getting blown out. Don't stop coaching. The worst thing for a youth athlete to have to endure is silence from their coach when the game's not going well. That silence is deafening. In every situation, including blowouts, there are areas for positive coaching, life lessons, and skill. So develop skills. Utilize these moments for that. Blowouts are going to happen. They will get out of control. And sometimes one team simply doesn't have it. But it's important that coaches, we model the expectations we want out of our players. So don't stop coaching during a blowout. When the blowout is over, do leave it on the floor. Everybody knows when they got blown out. Everybody knows when a team was embarrassed or humiliated. There's been a lot of times when you've heard coaches in the pro ranks get blown out and they say they're going to burn the tape. All right? I'm not assuming you coaches tape these days as much as I think they do, but leave it on the floor. Address it at the end of the game and leave it there. Don't keep going back to it in practice. Don't harp on it. Address the points of improvement and move on. Don't throw it up in your players' face that Monday at practice. They want to forget about it. If you continue to bring it up, they will dwell on it, and when people dwell, mistakes happen. I want to end on a positive. When you're dealing with kids, youth sports, a blowout, like I said, can be disheartening. But when you leave that huddle, remind them of all the positives they have in life. Sports should not be life or death. I posted on Instagram, Ball is Life is a cute slogan for a t-shirt, but it's not the way any young athlete should carry on. And as adults, we need to help model that perspective. So leave it on the floor. Leave it there and don't go back to it. Learn from it and move on. That's about enough of that. Folks, we have just crossed the 825 marker on our Facebook site. I'm trying to get to 1,000 and I need your help. Evolution is slow, smallpox is fast. We are trying to evolve youth sports, and I need your help to do that. Please like, share, tag a friend, invite a friend to follow us on social media. That's the way we're going to grow. Our numbers have increased since we started doing this podcast, and I would like to see them continue. If you're in the Hampton Roads, Virginia area, stay tuned. I'll be dropping some information about our Hampton Roads Sports Reclamation Toy Drive, Project Toy Drive / basketball camp. Once I get the dates nailed down, we'll talk more about that as well. If you would like to add to this topic, subtract from this topic, argue a topic, discuss a topic, plug a book, or just get on and shoot the bull with Coach John about youth sports, please reach out to me. You can find me at the Sports Reclamation Project on Facebook, _Sports Reclamation Project on Instagram. You can email me at john@sportsreclamationproject.com. Until then, I hate to say that's it, that's all, but I hope you've had a ball. If you are heading out to the ball fields or courts tonight, please remember, thank your athlete's coach, be kind to the referees, and as always, remind your kids you love watching them play. This is John with the Sports Reclamation Project, and we will talk again later.